सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां। रामो राजमणिः सदा विजयते रामं रमेशं भजे। रामेणाभिहता निशाचरचमू रामाय तस्मै नमः। रामान्नास्ति परायणं परतरं रामस्य दासोऽस्म्यहम्। रामे चित्तलयः सदा भवतु मे भो राम मामुद्धर। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। हरि ओम। हरि ओम। In the last session, we had seen Arthapatti. This was a pramana that we had started with. The other pramanas which we saw, Pratyaksha Pramana, Anumana, Upamana. There was a question last time. Is there some kind of adhikaritva needed to study these pramanas? Or is it that anybody can study these pramanas? Adhikaritva means some qualification. Because the question was, it's so easy to misunderstand any pramana, take an erroneous example, and then go ahead with it without knowing that this is not the right direction to go. And it also looks like each pramana has its own depth. There is a very specific knowledge, specific textbook, and we have not studied so much in detail. So what is the relevance of these pramanas for us in our study and in our own life? So we had seen there are several layers to studying this pramanas. A very simple benefit you call advantage of studying pramana vichara is we will not jump to a conclusion without putting forth effort in thinking about valid means of knowledge. Meaning there is a difference between opinion and knowledge. Right? So either it is something very simple like gathering vyapti. Means not that before studying Anumana Pramana we did not gather vyapti. Vyapti was continuously getting gathered about different things in our life. And unknowingly, this is constantly happening. That if this is there, these two things are going together, then I gather a particular vyapti. So having studied Praman Vichara, the effort would be to make sure that it's a Shuddha Vyapti. Shuddha Vyapti means there is no digression in between while gathering that Vyapti. Or even while using Upamana Pramana, for example, like how we gave a Chiku and Kiwi example. Like this, we constantly keep giving several examples for different things. But one who has done Praman Vichara will put forth effort to see how close that example is to that thing that we actually want to indicate. And it can take a long time to come up with a good example. Why? Because now that sadhaka has become very alert. He's not just randomly giving any example, he's matching all the sadharmya, similarity, knowing what is the vaidharmya, dissimilarity, and then saying that, okay, this is the right example suited for the other thing. So Vyavaharik benefit is, it will make us very alert if we pay attention to pramanas. We also saw sadhana aspect of all the pramanas. When we saw pratyaksha pramana, we saw the sadhana aspect in the sense how mind works, right? The ability of this mind to pervade things if you are able to let go of smaller things. When it came to Anumana Pramana, there also we saw how it can help in Mananam. If we have a systematic way of doing the Pancha Avayava, Pratijna, Hetu, Drishtanta, Upanaya, Nigamanam, now that can help us everywhere. Any point that we want to say, if I try to put that point in these 5 things, then I will realize more clarity is coming in that thing. So from a sadhana perspective, to do Mananam, Anumana Pramana is helpful. Then we went into Upamana Pramana, and we saw sadhana aspect there also, that how a yogi is able to put himself in other person's shoes and then think about things. He responds to Sukha and Dukkha as if it were his own. This is the sadhana aspect of Upamana Pramana. Now you might say, in the beginning only we had said that except Shabda Pramana, all other 5 Pramanas don't reveal nature of Brahma. But here also we saw, even though they do not directly reveal nature of Brahman, they can help us strengthen our understanding of Brahma. All Pramanas. For example, when we saw Pratyaksha Pramana, we saw entire Pratyaksha from the standpoint of how Chaitanya appears as Pramata, Pramana, and Prameya. The knower, the knowing, the thought of knowing, and the object of knowledge. All of that is consciousness alone. So through that, what we have studied in Vedanta, through Shabda Pramana, that gets strengthened actually. How consciousness alone is appearing as his creation. And even while I'm doing my work, I'm busy with whatever things I'm doing, if I practice or have this clarity of knowledge, my attention can be on Chaitanya. When it came to Anumana Pramana, there also we saw Brahman is not revealed by Anumana Pramana. But what was the Pratijna Shankaracharya ji made? Atma Asangaha. Another was Jagrat Jagat Mithya. Now these are all Pratijna Vakyas from Upanishads, from Shruti. Using that, we are able to deepen our understanding of that Vakya. So Shabda Pramana has told us that Atma is Asanga. But I need more depth and more conviction in that. Upamana Pramana also we saw. Jivan Mukti, nature of liberation, is revealed through Shabda Pramana. But using Sushupti Avastha, we can understand how that state is. That we saw in the last session. Upamana Pramana we used to understand between deep sleep, Sushupti, and in Jivan Mukti, what are the similarities which can be there. So Brahman is not revealed directly by these Pramanas, but if one can understand how these Pramanas operate, then we can use all of them to strengthen our understanding of Brahma. Okay, that is the main message. And the first portion was sadhana aspect also, these Pramanas will be helpful. And Vyavaharik aspect also, these Pramanas are helpful. So in the last session, we had seen Arthapatti Pramana. Okay, what is the example for Arthapatti? Ground is wet and you are not seeing rain. So using the effect, trying to understand nature of the cause. That is Arthapatti. And this is what makes Arthapatti different from Anumana Pramana. In Anumana, there is no cause-effect relationship. Both things are only seen together. But in Arthapatti, you cannot explain the effect without that cause having been there. Okay, so that is Arthapatti. And then we saw different aspects of Arthapatti. Definition also we saw. Now, if this statement is clear, right, that effect can never be without a cause. Now, using that, all philosophers, all thinkers, they thought about several things of this creation. First thing was, what is the cause of creation? Because creation is an effect, it is a karyam. And karyam, how did we define it? That which is constantly modifying, that which is born, and that which will perish. This is karyam. You see how precise their definition is. I'm just giving the English translation. But once you define karyam in this way, you take anything in this creation, all of that will fit under this definition. So if effect can never be without a cause, what is the cause of creation? So then they went into all different options: atoms, molecules, time, mind. But Upanishads say creation has come from consciousness. It has emerged and it appears in consciousness. Now, how can that unchanging consciousness be the substratum? How can that unchanging consciousness be the substratum for this changing creation? Right? Everything in this world looks to be so changing. So then came this point that consciousness along with Maya is the cause of creation. So why did we discuss this entire thing? To show that nature of Maya is understood through Arthapatti. Meaning what? You look at the nature of creation. In creation, we see these three gunas: Sattva guna, Rajo guna, and Tamo guna, in form of expressions. Right? Either mind is very sattvic, sometimes it is rajasic, sometimes it is tamasic. And these inert objects that we are seeing, we say they are inert and they are tamasic. When we saw our Tattva Bodha creation process, there we had seen this entire gross world comes from the tamasic aspect of Maya. Sense organs, organs of actions, they come from rajasic aspect. Organs of perceptions, they come from sattvic aspect. So how did we arrive at that? We say by looking at the effect, nature of the cause was understood. So let us see a little bit more about this point now. So this is from Tattva Bodha. All of you are very familiar with this now. How was creation process explained in Tattva Bodha? First there was Shuddha Chaitanya, Brahma. And then came Maya Upadhi, Brahma Shraya Maya Asti. So from the Maya Upadhi, which is rooted in Brahma, came the first element, which is Akasha. From Akasha came first organ of perception, which is Shrotrendriya. Important thing to note here is space is apanchikrita right now. It is unmanifest. Panchikaranam has not happened. It is unmanifest space. Now somebody might ask a question, why do you say that ear has come out from space only? Or why do you say that Shrotrendriya has Sattva guna of Maya as its cause? So then we say use Arthapatti Pramana. You look at the nature of this Shrotrendriya. Analyze that ability to hear Shrotrendriya very carefully. What are the things we find? We say first is this ear is able to know things. Shrotrendriya has knowledge. If sound is there, Bhagavan Shankaracharya said, it manifests the sound for you. Shabda abhivanjakam shrotrendriyam. Kenopanishad. That's how he defined it. So if it is having the ability to gather knowledge, So it should have come from Sattva aspect of Maya. So this is the first Arthapatti that we do. Because Shrotrendriya has Jnana Samarthya, ability to gain knowledge, it should have come from Sattva Guna. Second is, it is subtle. Shrotrendriya is subtle. Not the physical ear, ability to hear. That is subtle. So its cause also should be subtle. So that is why we say it has come from apanchikruta panchamahabhuta. And what is the third quality of ear? We say it is able to know only one guna. Shabda guna only it can gather. So then you look at Panchamahabhutas, which Panchamahabhuta has Shabda guna as its guna. So Akasha is that element which has Shabda as its guna. So if it is seen in the effect, it should also be in the cause. Right? So through Arthapatti, we are able to infer, we are able to understand that Shrotrendriya has come from Sattva Guna aspect of Maya. It is subtle, so it has come from Apanchikruta Panchamahabhuta. But there are 5 Apanchikruta. Which one has it come out from? We say it has come out from Akasha. Because Akasha's guna is sound and Shrotrendriya is doing Grahanam of sound. Okay, so by evaluating nature of the sense organ of perception, we can postulate the element from which it has come out. So in the same way, all other elements are also analyzed, all other sense organs are analyzed, and appropriate element is connected back to. This is familiar to all of you, right? I don't have to repeat the other elements. Like if you see skin, for example, the same thing you apply. It is able to know, it is subtle, and it can have only one guna. So which is that guna? Which is sparsha. Sparsha belongs to air. So we say skin sense organ has come from air element. Same with eyes, tongue, and nose. So remember, this is again to go back to where we started in the class today. Shabda Pramana will reveal nature of Brahma. Arthapatti will not reveal nature of Brahma, but it will help us understand nature of Brahma. And when it comes to this creation, all these pramanas our acharyas will use. Because if they have to explain from Brahma, how did our Shrotrendriya come, how did skin come, fragrance, everything, if they have to explain, they cannot use again Shabda Pramana. So there they will use all other pramanas. Now we also saw that from Samashti Panchamahabhutas, combination of sattvic aspect of all the 5 Panchamahabhutas, mind comes about. Antahkarana you call. Mana Buddhi, Chitta Ahankara, that emerges from Samashti aspect of, Samashti sattvic aspect of all Panchamahabhutas. Now you will ask, how did you arrive at this conclusion? We say look at the nature of mind carefully. First thing we see about mind is it is able to know. Look at your own mind. It is able to know something of this world outside. So if it is able to know, it should have been from Sattva Guna only. Okay, knowledge ability is there only in Sattva Guna. It is subtle, mind is subtle, so its cause also has to be subtle. So it has to come from Apanchikruta Panchamahabhutas. But the interesting thing about mind is, unlike sense organs, it can gain knowledge of all 5 gunas. Mind can process sound, it can process touch, it can process heat. If you want to try it, you just close your eyes or just, try to play some music in your head. With a thought, you can create sound. With a thought, we can bring the fragrance of a rose. Rose is not there. So how did this mind do all of those things? We say because it is made from samashti aspect of all these 5 Panchamahabhutas. The main point to understand here is how acharyas use arthapatti in several other places to communicate a particular point. Okay. Now another practical application of arthapatti. Okay, this was a little technical. What is arthapatti? Looking at the effect, we try to understand reason. We try to understand nature of the cause. In our own life and in others' life, these are the 2 experiences that keep coming time and again. Sukham and Dukkham. What did Vidurji say in Bhagavatam? Sukhaya karmani karoti lokaha. Nate sukham va anyad uparamam va. Means we try so hard to get sukham. But Vidurji's understanding is, he says, in spite of trying so hard, neither have we gotten sukham and our dukkham has not gone away. On the other hand, dukkham which I did not want, that has arrived unasked. So this is his understanding of life. His own experience is analyzing. So if we are seeing this effect of either sukham or dukkham, then it is said it cannot be without a cause. So then it is open, you can give different opinions. Why do you think there is sukham and dukkham in our life? Now, different people have different answers. Somebody might say it is random, right? But our Shastras say Sukha and Dukkha is direct result of Punya and Papa. Punya karma presents itself as Sukham and Papa karma will present itself as some Dukkham. Means karma itself is coming to me as karma phala. My own karma, whatever I have done, that alone is coming back as karma phala. So person who understands this, his main emphasis now will be about taking care of karmas. Making sure that we are on the dharmic side as much as possible. And wherever punya karma opportunity this sadhaka gets, he will not leave it. Whatever it might be, it is said, Vedavyashi says, the greatest form of punya is parahita. In entire Puranas, only 2 things Vedavyashi says is my essence. Paropakara punyaya, papaya parapidanam. If I think about well-being of others, so that brings punya. So this sadhaka now is more tuned towards adjusting or making sure he does good karmas. But why did he start doing karmas in the first place? Papa punya is second step. But what was the cause because of which this person, this jiva, started doing karma? You see, effect is seen, it cannot be without a cause. So there we say it is because of kama. Some kama means some desire, some incompleteness was experienced inside. And there was a thought, thinking that if I do something outside, this desire will go away. Okay, so immediate result of punya papa is, or karma is kama. And one step before that, why did kama come in the first place? We say it is avidya. Not knowing our nature to be Ananda Swarupa, we took ourselves to be something else. With that came incompleteness or kama. Because of this incompleteness came the next, which is karma. I wanted to remove that incompleteness by doing something. And while doing that, I could not help but create ragadveshas. And because of that, there was punya papa, and that punya papa gives sukha and dukkha. Okay, those of you who might have heard Naishkarmya Siddhi, Swamiji's introductory talks, Sureshwaracharya gives this as 7-layer model. I try to bring it in 4. But the main point is, looking at the effect, he says we can infer the cause. Meaning what? Even if somebody says there is sukha dukkha in my life and gives reality to it, we say the cause is over here, avidya. Not knowing myself to be Ananda Swarupa, holding on to some conditioning, thinking of myself to be Karta and Bhokta, I have given myself titles of Sukhi and Dukhi. So I am not Dukhi, we can understand. But I am not Sukhi also. Right? Because both of them are dharma of this mind. If situations are conducive, then the sadhaka says, I am Sukhi. Okay. So this is the another application of Arthapatti Pramana. Now comes a very small or a very brief Pramana. It is called Anupalabdhi Pramana. Okay, this is the next one. We have completed Arthapatti now. We are moving into Anupalabdhi Pramana. Now, Anupalabdhi Pramana, you can understand with this example first. Let us say every day there are n number of people who come to a place. And then one day, one person is absent from that group. Now you have seen that person sitting there consistently, and today you don't see that person in that place. So naturally, the thought comes that this person is not there. And you know that person's name also. So you will get this knowledge that this person is absent today. Now, if it was somebody else who has come to that place the first time, that person will not get this knowledge. Right? Because that person has never seen anybody sitting there. He's just seeing an empty chair. For him, it is nothing. But for the person who has seen this before, and now he is seeing absence of a thing, knowledge will take place. That knowledge is called as Anupalabdhi. Absence of a thing is creating knowledge. Now, how is this different from Pratyaksha Pramana? Because right now, Prameya is absent. While this person is seeing that empty chair, whatever Prameya was seen before, that Prameya is absent. So in Pratyaksha, you should have, Pramata should be there and Prameya should be there in front of you at that point. So this is the example of Anupalabdhi Pramana. A simple definition of that is Jnana Karana Ajanya. Jnana Karana, instruments of knowledge, knowledge which takes place without that. Jnana Karana Ajanya, Abhava Anubhava. Abhava Anubhava means knowledge of absence. Asadharana Karanam Anupalabdhi Pramanam. So Anupalabdhi Pramana is that in which knowledge takes place without that object being there. Means even though the Prameya is absent, I am seeing only Desha, but no Dravya. Dravya means material or Prameya. That Prameya is not there. So how did this knowledge take place? Previous samskaras were there. I have seen that person sitting there every time. So that samskara is helping me right now to get that knowledge. Okay. So because this pramana is mentioned, that is why we covered it in very brief. This is Anupalabdhi Pramana, and this is different from Pratyaksha, Anumana, and other Pramanas. Okay, so 5 Pramanas are over now. Now we enter the most important one, which is called as Shabda Pramana. Shabda Pramana is so prevalent that all other Pramanas use Shabda only. Even if you want to use Anumana, you say, first I will do Pratijna. So what is Pratijna? Pratijna is a Shabda. So communication, all other Pramanas, for effective communication, all of them use Shabda Pramana only. And you say Pratyaksha Pramana, does it use Shabda? We say yes, even Pratyaksha, we will not know what that object is unless we know the name of that thing. In simple words, let us say we meet some person. We don't talk. We just meet and greet. Everything is done, pleasantries, are exchanged. Even after meeting that person, you still ask your friend, who was that person? They say, you just met him, you shook your hand also. You don't know who he is? They say, no, in spite of seeing with my eyes, in spite of using my hands to greet that person, still I don't know who he is. And now let us say this friend tells you, he is the governor of this state. You say, oh, governor of this state. I shook hands with him. He said, yes, you did. So the point is, unless Shabda is there, unless a word is used, we will not get knowledge of that object as it is. We will get to some extent. We will know maybe that he is a man or a woman. That we can know. But thorough knowledge of an object will take place only through Shabda Pramana. So this Pramana becomes very important because we say in Vedanta, knowledge of Brahman, liberation, will take place only through Vakya. Only through words this knowledge will take place. So we have to understand very clearly how Shabda Pramana works. Because Brahman is not something different from me. It is ever experienced. It is Aparoksha. Now all of you know what is Aparoksha, right? We discussed in the previous session. Not Pratyaksha, not Paroksha, it is Aparoksha. So for revealing nature of Aparoksha Vastu, only Shabda is sufficient. Nothing else is needed. That is the power of Shabda Pramana. Just like how we say, to see form of an object, only eyes are sufficient. Right? In the same way, to know nature of Brahma, only Shabda, Mahavakya, clear understanding of that is sufficient. So Goswamiji gives a glimpse of the greatness of Shabda Pramana. In Balakanda, if you pay closer attention to these chaupais, you realize he has explained Shabda Pramana over here. What does he say? Dekhiye hi rupa nama adhina, rupa jnana nahi nama bhina. Between name and the form, Goswamiji says the form is dependent on the name. Dekhiye hi rupa nama adhina. Form is dependent on the name. Rupa jnana nahi nama bhina. Without the Shabda, without the name, we will not get knowledge of that form. Rupa jnana nahi nama bhina. Rupa visesha nama binu jane, karatala gatana parahi pahichane. Sometimes even some fruit which is there, even if you keep it on your hand, you eat it also. But if you don't know the name, he says you will not know that we have eaten that fruit or we have known that fruit. If somebody asks us, did you taste that fruit? We say, which fruit? I have not known because nama is not there. Sumiriya nama rupa binu dekhe avata hrudaya saneha biseshe. But then he says, even if you know the name and you can just take the name, that object will manifest in our heart. Because name we have known always by attaching it with an object. So you take the name, that Rupa will come to us. So this is Nama Mahima. There Goswamiji writes, take name of Bhagwan, Bhagwan's form will come in front of our eyes. This is Shabda Pramana. You must be familiar with another incident in Goswamiji's life. That when he goes to Kashi, he wants to have Bhagwan's darshan. So Hanuman used to come in the form of a batu. When he used to give pravachans, Hanumanji used to come in form of a brahmana, and he tells Goswamiji, you go to Chitrakoot, and there Bhagwan will give you darshan. So Goswamiji used to go there and do this chandanam, just, what do they say, that stick they take and just roll it around that plate. So he used to do that, and he was so engrossed in taking Bhagwan's name that once Bhagwan came and he went away. He did not see. Goswamiji was very disappointed that, Bhagwan came and I did not get his darshan. Second time, Bhagwan comes and still Goswamiji is doing that chandanam. So Hanumanji, it is said, he says this chaupai, Chitrakoot ke ghat par bhai santan ke bhir. On this ghat of Chitrakoot, it is filled with all sadhu mahatmas. Tulasi chandana ghise tilaka deta Raghubir. That is saying, oh Tulsi, the one who is putting this tilak is none other than Bhagwan Rama. You saw so many people there, but now lift your eyes and look at Bhagwan. The point is, if the words of Hanumanji was not there, even though Rupa was there, knowledge will not take place. Okay, that is the main part over here. Huh? What is Shabda Pramana? That Atma is ever experienced. Atma is never not experienced or something different from me. But unless Shabda comes and tells us that this Atma, which is the witness of thought, that alone is a substratum of this creation, unless that Shabda comes, knowledge will not take place. And this is so much so that no other pramana can reveal this knowledge. That witness of thought is substratum of creation. No other pramana can reveal it. Okay, so this is the introduction to Shabda Pramana, how prevalent it is and how it is important even in our Vedantic journey. So Shabda Pramana we can categorize in two main broad topics. One part is called as Laukika Shabda Pramana, and another category is Alaukika, Vaidika Shabda Pramana. Laukika means what? I didn't want to give English translation for this because again it goes here and there. Laukika means those words which we hear from people around us. And that gives us knowledge of things of this world only. That is called as Laukika. For example, you want to know what happened in New Delhi yesterday. Right? So either somebody calls you and tells you, do you know what happened over here? And then they give you all the information. Now, how did you get that information? Through Shabda. Or you saw the news. News is also Shabda Pramana. Now we will see later what is precise definition of Shabda Pramana. When you see that definition, you wonder whether news you can include there or not. Because Shabda Pramana is Apta Vakya Shabda. It has to come from a reliable source. Either it is Laukika or Alaukika, source should be reliable. But when you say news, you cannot directly fit it under Shabda Pramana because many times they are just opinions. Either this way, left or right. Another Shabda Pramana is conversations, whatever. And you notice how much of our information, how much of our perspective in life is shaped by Shabda Pramana. Somebody comes and gives some information, whatever that type of information is. But our knowledge is getting shaped in that way. Right? If somebody says there is a coaching class over here, which is very good. Now we have not gone to see it. Only the Shabda we heard. And we say, oh, maybe this is a good place. We should go over there. Right? So that is the prevalence of Shabda Pramana. Alaukika Shabda Pramana is mainly Upanishads. Vedas, and in Vedas in particular, Upanishads, they are referred to as Alaukika Shabda Pramana. They will not reveal nature of something which is there in this world. That which is beyond the sense organs. That is why it becomes Alaukika. That which is beyond the sense organ, knowledge of that will come from these pramanas. So Upanishad Pramana will reveal knowledge of something which is beyond sense organs. So what are the two things which are beyond sense organs? Dharma and Brahma. So if I want to know, if I do a particular karma, whether it will give dharma, whether it will give punya, we cannot decide on our own. So that guidance will come from Vedas. Like how we were saying yesterday in our Ramayana class, doing Sandhya Vandanam gives punya. Or it gives a very cheerful mind, because punya, don't just leave it at that, directly connect it with sukham. Right? Doing Sandhya Vandanam gives joy, or will bring joy in our life. Doing pujanam of Bhagwan will bring joy in our life. Now, how will you establish it? You don't have any other pramana that we can use. So we say Shabda Pramana is our main pramana there. There is Swarga, Brahmaloka, Devatas are there. You see, we cannot see them with our physical eyes. Our own thoughts we cannot see with our physical eyes. What to talk about Devatas. So Pramana there will be Alaukika Shabda Pramana. So somebody might ask, you said Laukika Shabda Pramana is listening, right? To Shabda. Isn't that Pratyaksha Pramana? This question was asked earlier, and we had said we will discuss it when we come to Shabda Pramana. What is the question? That I'm listening to some news, but isn't it Pratyaksha? We said whatever knowledge takes place through sense organs, that is Pratyaksha. So I'm listening, so that is my ear which is getting used. Why don't you call it Pratyaksha Pramana? Why are you calling it as Shabda Pramana? Let us say the news was in Chinese language. Okay. Now, will knowledge take place? Say no. Because Pratyaksha's role is only to bring that sound to our ears. Sound will come to ear. But Shabda Pramana, we can say Shabda Pramana has worked only when knowledge has taken place of that Shabda. Right? That if that news was in Chinese, even though words were coming, only Pratyaksha was happening. Shabda Pramana was not working. But let us say that same news is in English or any other language that I know, then that word is creating knowledge. So that is the difference. Pratyaksha Pramana, it will just show the form, it will just bring the sound. But for knowledge to take place of that thing, if it happens, then we say it is because of Shabda Pramana. And you will realize a lot of these pramanas are intertwined. One leads into another. The purpose is not get to stuck on these points, whether it is different or it is the same. The main point is we should know how each pramana is working. Okay. So Shabda Pramana, main it comes to Mahavakya. There we will see more in detail. All right. More the fundamentals of Shabda Pramana, applications of it, that we'll see in the next session. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. There were two questions from last time. One question was, just like we mapped deep sleep to Pralaya and Jivan Mukti, is waking and dream also mapped to something? Like how we mapped deep sleep to Jivan Mukti and Pralaya, is waking also mapped to something? We say waking is where we have to make our pratijna. We have to understand that Jagrat Jagat is mithya. So that is why we take Jagrat Jagat as our paksha. Paksha means it is the place where you have to prove a point. We don't want to go into dream and then take Jagrat as example. Right? Because Jagrat you cannot extrapolate anywhere else. Meaning you cannot remember Jagrat Avastha from waking, from dream, nor can you remember Jagrat Avastha from deep sleep. So there is no point in giving any extrapolations. But you can use dream and deep sleep, give examples from there, and apply the same thing in Jagrat. Like Drishyatva. Now entire Jagrat Jagat, we have to make this pratijna that it is mithya. And what is our hetu? Drishyatvat. So you cannot take something from Jagrat only and say this is mithya because it is drishya. Because that is your paksha. That is where you have to make your pratijna. That is where you have to establish your point. So then you give example of Swapna Avastha and then draw a parallel. Jivan Mukti also, we are not too concerned about it in dream and deep sleep. Right? So we can take example from there and understand both of it. Another question which was there that I covered in the introduction only, about who is the right adhikari. Okay. In continuing with cause-effect analysis, what is the cause of ignorance? Or is ignorance something that has an end but has no beginning, and so cause-effect can't be applied? That is true. Ignorance, the only cause of that is I do not know, that is why I am ignorant. We cannot give any other cause for ignorance. Even worldly ignorance, right? If somebody says, I don't know Russian language. I say, why don't you know Russian language? I say, I don't know, that is all. Because I don't know, there can be several other repercussions. But why I don't know, that we don't have to inquire. And over here in Vedanta, we say, our own experience. Means I should ask myself, what is my understanding of myself right now? If I say I am this body or I am this person, we say that alone is ignorance. Now I should not try to ask, why do I think this way? You say, go with Anubhava. Start right there. It will lead us to the correct knowledge. Correct knowledge is I am infinite Brahma. Is it not correct understanding that while all desires will eventually manifest as action of some sort, not all karma is because of desire? One can be desireless but still engage in action. Otherwise, most people will interpret inaction as state to be in. That is true. That is why vocabulary we have to get fine-tuned in Vedanta. When we say incompleteness or desire, what it means is we have taken ourselves to be finite. So from that finitude rises certain type of necessary karmas, which we call as nitya karmas. Nitya naimittika karmas will fall under that category. But we don't stop at that, right? We also have other desires. That is why there is kamya karma. But that also doesn't end. Desires can take us in another direction. There can be nishiddha karma also. Forbidden actions. Kamya karma means desire prompted actions. Nitya naimittika karma are those karmas which are performed because of a sense of duty. Now remember, that has also come because of this finite identity. Because we did not know ourselves to be consciousness of the nature of Ananda Swarupa, we had to take a physical body. So physical body, when it comes to humans, then there are do's and don'ts. Birds and animals also have physical body, but they don't have any do's and don'ts. Right? So even those actions which are performed out of a sense of duty, the root of that is in avidya only. Okay. And what those karmas will do, nitya naimittika, it will help purify us and understand this point that I am not karta. That is how it should connect back. Okay. All right. In Anupalabdhi Pramana, why do we say it is Jnana Karana Ajanya? The absence is also detected via senses only. That is true. Means we are seeing with our eyes that prameya is absent. Jnana Karana Ajanya is just to distinguish it from Pratyaksha Pramana. Otherwise, if you don't use that word, we might include Pratyaksha also in Anupalabdhi. So just to make sure that we are distinguishing Anupalabdhi from Pratyaksha Pramana, that is why that term is used, Jnana Karana Ajanya. If you want to understand it in a simple way, Jnana Karana Ajanya means prameya is absent. Not eyes are absent, prameya is absent. Space colloquially is understood as vacuum, where ordinary sound cannot travel. So I take it that space association to sound relation is different in Vedanta. Yes. Every branch of science will have its own vocabulary, and it's helpful if we don't try to understand one in terms of another. For that matter, in science, if you say water, water is not liquid. Water is combination of two gases. Right? Hydrogen and oxygen coming together makes water. So that is scientific way of looking at water, and they will have their own way. Vedanta says water is the ashraya of taste. Rasa, guna ashraya is water. Sound, we try to use the guna of, space, we try to use the guna of sound. So that Pancha Mahabhuta, which is ashraya of Shabda, that is called as Akasha. So that difference will be there when we come to Vedanta. Shabda, words that we don't have previous knowledge of, are still meaningless to us. How did knowledge of first word take place? Words that we don't have previous knowledge of are still meaningless. That is true. How did knowledge of first word take place? I was wondering whether to go into this or not, but it's a very technical topic. But because this question is asked, I'll just hint at it. Why do we have to stop at Shabda? We say go even finer. Shabda is formed from Varnamala. Ka, ka, ga, gha, nga, a, a, I, u, u. Varnamala by itself doesn't have any meaning. So Varnamala doesn't have meaning. How come Shabda has a meaning? And if Shabda doesn't have a meaning, Shabda only forms Vakya. So how come Vakya will have meaning? Right? But we are uttering statements. We are listening to things. Knowledge is also taking place. We cannot deny that. So there it is said, whenever we speak something, whenever transactions or language evolves, certain samskaras continuously take place along with hearing of Shabda. Means whenever we have heard a word, that samskara has been left in that mind. Next time when a new word is heard, with the help of that, this previous samskaras are brought in, and then we are able to build upon that knowledge. So in this way, different shabdas, their new knowledge can take place based upon Purva Samskara that is there with us. And if you really want to go to the root of everything, it is that Panini Maharshi, he heard that Damaru. Right? Not just a sound which was there from Lord Shiva's Damaru, but his mind was so pure, he could grasp all the Maheshwara Sutras, and from that grammar evolved. And Panini Maharshi has given dhatus. Whichever dhatus are there, they are eternal. And the question was, how did knowledge of the first word take place? You see, those dhatus which are there, they are eternal words, and from that alone, different other words have emerged. Those are into linguistics. This is a very intriguing question for them. I had few friends, who are into linguistics. How did language evolve? Right? What was the first primordial sound? From that, what came next? But we don't have to go into that much detail. Our main point is, Shabda should create Jnanam, in particular, Mahavakya. Ignorance is something that sometimes I don't want to know. Why is it so? Something I don't want to know. Or sometime I don't want to. Why is it? Why is it that? The way I understood this question is, sometimes you don't want to inquire into nature of ignorance, in spite of knowing that I'm ignorant about that thing. There could be several reasons. One is we don't have the right pramana. Right? If you don't have the right pramana, we'll get frustrated. Even for worldly knowledge, let us say you want to make a recipe, right? You want to make some dish and you don't know the recipe. You are ignorant about how to make it. But the fact that we don't pursue further is we are unable to find the right pramana. So that could be one reason. Or simpler reason is there could be some tamas also, which is making us not inquire into ajnana.